Does the world lost? Because when it comes to creativity, does the world lost? Because when it comes, does the world lost? Because when it comes to creativity, does the world lost? Because when it comes, does the world lost? Because when it comes to creativity, does the world lost? Because when it comes, does the world lost? Because when it comes to creativity, does the world lost? Because when it comes.
Let's go ahead and take a listen to this one. You know, and that's actually pretty weak if you ask me. You could definitely beef those snares up. The kick, of course, I'm not too worried on the low end of the kick because I do want to leave as much space for the bass on. So there it is right there. There's my kick for the bass to roll. And yeah, that looks like a pretty messy kick right there. I'm pretty sure it's a really good kick when you take all this processing off of it. No, it's pretty standard issue. But that's generally what I was going for. And then of course we have the same melody that's playing here. Of course with that top end cut here at pretty much 2.6 kilohertz. And then when we come here to the same melody, it just has that it's open on the top end. So let's go ahead and take a look at the what that would sound like. We can do these. We'll do right here is fine. So okay, this one no top end. This one different sound with a lot of top end. So let's take a listen up on that. Okay, so of course it's not necessarily louder in I mean it is technically in decibels, it's definitely a lot louder. But because when you cut the top end off of sounds, it gives it that muted or that warmer kind of feel. You're taking all of that air out of it, right? And you see a lot of producers do this. I picked up on this technique because I had seen a documentary or interview on Jay Dilla's the way he handles his MPC. I think it's the MPC. Please don't don't kick my ass in the comments if I'm wrong here. But what he would do is, in order to give, I think it was a verse or a chorus, he would take the top end off of the main sections or the melodies or the hook of the track. And then when he would bring it back in, he would just reintroduce that top end. And it's a really good technique to deploy when you're, especially if you're sampling, or you're restricted to 8 channels or a limited amount of channels, because it can give you dynamic, right? It can give you a change. It can, if you're not going to be using white noise or these little cues to indicate big changes in the music structure or sonically, you can do this by removing the top end and adding it back in when you want to introduce that energy back to the dance floor or to the listener's ears. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that one more time. So I don't know how well, you guys let me know if I commented or if I executed that pretty well. Just leave a comment if you think I pulled that off as well as I think I did, because I think I did a pretty good job, but tooted my own horn there. So there's a second section to this drop, which I introduce drum girl, which is just a ride. Right, and I like to do this little trill thing here. That's what I call it, a lick or a trill. I don't know. It seems to be pretty popular in a lot of trap and hip hop music today. And I like it. I think it's a really cool effect. If we listen to it completely, you can tell that now with these right here, it definitely brings in a lot more energy compared to the first chunk of the drop. Right. So again, I do this as a an audible cue to let the listeners know this is the hardest section, or you know, yeah, there's a lot of energy going into here. And if energy is what you're looking for, things like this, doing things like this is what's going to help. I'm not really sure on any other way I'd be able to, convey energy sonically. Without adding, some crashes, some rides, some splashes, um, audible cues that kind of get the listener's attention. Because for the most part, I mean, if we take this out, we just have this section over here. And again, I didn't want to necessarily repeat, 8 bars or 16 bars of um, the same kind of energy going on. Because if you look at the melody, it's the same melody. There's chords here now, which I haven't really talked about, but they're pretty chill chords, man. And these chords differ from the drone noise that's happening here, and if we put them all together, right, so it's pretty chill, man, and I didn't want this track to be that chill. So let's move on to the fourth section, which is the impact breakdown. Now here you can see I have a lot of little notes. Impact breakdown. These ones I did right now. I was kind of prepping myself because I didn't want to get too lost in the sauce. But I have notes here, like these really important ones, like groove, impact, breakdown. Of course, impact, I'm basically telling myself I need to put something there to, again, as an audible cue for the listener to know this section has ended, and we are introducing a new section. So let's start here.
When it comes to creativity and to leadership, we need introverts doing what they do best. This might sound antisocial to you, but you are also free to go roaming around the adventure land inside your own mind. So I couldn't figure out for the life of me why we were supposed to be so rowdy, and I just waited for the time that I could go off and read my books. All the times that I got the message that somehow my quiet and introverted style of being was not necessarily the right way to go, and that I should be trying to pass as more of an extrovert. And I always sensed deep down that this was wrong, and that introverts were pretty excellent just as they were.
Okay, so we have this breakdown here, and I also have it a marker here for vibe. This is how usually my arrangements will work. I try to change them up because I don't want to make a different song with the same arrangement all the time. I think even though it is really effective, I would rather have maybe 4 or 5 good useful arrangements for different type of tracks, So for this track where it's a chill, but it also has that energy to it, I've noticed that these huge sections, what is this? This is, let's go see right here. This is 49 seconds, about a minute. And little sections like this can really do you some good because, I mean, if you think about it, the way arrangement works now, or if the way a DJ is working at a festival or at a club, usually it's a lot of just bass and drops and energy, and I want to give people, or the people who are dancing or enjoying themselves, a rest, a break, essentially, like a break in the sense of hey, let's go get a drink, or let's go smoke a cigarette, or let's, talk to people. Or maybe, you need to get a drink of water and you're kind of tired of dancing. This is what this section for me is for. And for the listener, it also, if you're listening to these on headphones, or in your room or in the car, these little rest sections, these break sections, allow the listener's ears to kind of readjust to a frequency or to a decibel that's a lot lower. And when you do that, it really saves you in the next run, because this next section hits just a little bit harder, but not as hard as the section before. Why? Because you had some quiet, or I don't know how to say it, like, I guess I'm just repeating myself at this point, but you've gone from a state of loud to quiet back to loud again, right? So here what I did was, it's the chords. This is a section where you get all the deep melodic or ambient kind of elements in the track. Again, this is nothing new with these chords here. You guys have heard them in the beginning of the first drop. But now I have a little bit more emphasis on some new melodic features, which is, I don't know why, I thought these kind of reminded me like jazz or something. So let's check these out. Right, and then again, it's this little melody, the dun 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 dun, and there's a bird in there. I did take some samples of birds, which if we listen to it,
All the times that I got the message that somehow my quiet and introverted style of being was not necessarily the right way to go, and that I should be trying to pass as more of an extrovert.
okay, so here with these leads, they're not really leads. I would say they're more like motion, and maybe they're a little overkill on having 4 of them, but I did want a detune, because when I had just the leads like that, they weren't really sticking out the way I wanted them to in the mix. Right? But then if I were to just take that top end off of it and just have the detune, I was running into the same problem. Right? They're not really hitting where I want them to. And you can hear there, somewhere around this section, it begins to peak out, right? Like towards the end of that lead, it kind of peaks through the frequencies. And I don't think I have a bus. I just have a chorus. That's not too bad. Yeah, there's no EQing on this whatsoever. That's probably my end of it. Let's take a look at that frequency. Well, you know what? Let's actually take a look at the bus the entirety of the bus. I'm trying to. I don't want to speed through this, but I kind of want to speed through it, because yeah, my CPU's kind of taking a dive right now. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. Maybe I could have taken off some top end right here, like just kind of put a limiter on like a brick wallet or something. That maybe not an EQ, but some sort of brick wall multi-band or something, right? But I didn't really see too much of an issue there, so I just left it as is. And before I move on to the next section, I actually want to talk about the samples here. Well, 2 more things: the samples and the little energy push I give out somewhere over here towards the end. But these samples here,
All the times that I got the message that somehow my quiet and introverted style of being was not necessarily the right way to go, and that I should be trying to pass as more of an extrovert.
this is where when I listened to a lot of TED Talks, and when I had found this TED Talk, it kind of gave me a run of, because I had been feeling really shitty when I was writing the song. The 2 weeks before I had started writing this track, and the day of, and I had actually found this TED Talk that day when I'd started writing this track. So it kind of hit me in a sense. That talk alone is what really pushed me to